My name is Javier Perez. I'm one of the founders and owners of course, Kilo, Grain Traders Restaurants. And yeah, I've been living in Singapore for the last 9 years of my life. And yeah, just trying to figure it all out little by little.
Thank you, Javier.
Hi everyone, I'm Jonathan, and I'm the owner and founder of Muchachos and The Daily Cut.
Thanks, Jonathan. Ming.
Hi guys, my name is Ming. I consider myself a lot less illustrious than my two counterparts up here.
But you work with Esquire, so that's fine.
Oh, definitely. I run and own Park Bench Deli. I was the former head chef at Lola for a couple of years, and I've had a very enjoyable time writing for Esquire and those colleagues. It's been a great thing. Thanks.
My first question is, why did you guys get into the business in the first place?
There's this saying in F&B, right? That if you have a bunch of money, say you came into some money, and someone approached you and said, I have the top 20 best ways to make money with that money. People in F&B generally will respond and tell you that food is outside of that top 20 list. It's probably at like 45 or 50. You're not in it to make money. It comes, yes, and it happens as a buy thing. But in my opinion, I think people go into food because of people. We are all people at heart. Whether you are a belligerent chef that prefers to work with vegetables rather than talk to other people and interact, or a business owner, or someone who works in food PR, for instance, at the heart of it, it's about food. Because food is about bringing people together, it makes people happy. It's very difficult to be unhappy all the time when you work in food, which is why a lot of you, would get into food if a food-related job, presented itself and it was sustainable for you. I'm quite sure. It's my take on it.
Jonathan, you were supposed to do law. Am I correct?
Yes.
And then you went into the business. Law is about people also, what?
Law is about money. Yeah?
So okay, what about you? Why do you, I think give up is a strong word for whatever you've done before. Then you went into PR, right? And then you started Muchachos. So what started it all? What activated that thought that, hey, this is something I want to do?
Why I got into F&B? The truth is, I didn't know better. Had I known better, I wouldn't have. But the truth is, for Muchachos, it was never meant to be a career move. It was actually meant to be a side project, a passion pursuit, where I was going to take half a year sabbatical from my consultancy job, and then, of all the things I could have done, the only thing I wanted to do was to make burritos. So Muchachos was born from that, and little did I know, or did I even expect Muchachos to become a viable career option. But eventually one thing led to another, and even then, even though Muchachos kind of took, I wasn't convinced that it was a sustainable long-term solution as far as income was concerned. So I did eventually go back to my consultancy as a part-time director, but with the Daily Cut, I guess I kind of realized that there was no way for me to just keep on a part-time basis. So I just made the decision that, okay, if I'm going to do F&B, I have to go in with both feet. And that was how I came to where I am right now.
So a little bit of context. Ming has a very hardworking kitchen in Singapore. Jonathan has two, and this guy has a few. So Jonathan mentioned that you weren't in it for anything else but, for your passion. For Javier, I want to ask this. When do you decide, with all that chaos and craziness, to expand? When was that moment you go like, okay, this is a lot of work, but let's expand? When was that moment for you?
I think the moment is is actually happening right now. You know, when people kind of look from the outside in and they say, wow, you guys are growing really quickly or you guys are expanding, there's a lot of things that are happening right now that have been in the midst or have been in the workings for a few years. So it's nothing that has happened, you know, so progressively or so aggressively. Um, so yeah, it's pretty much a domino effect, but something that we've been working on for a few years. You know, I guess to kind of touch on the question you asked these guys is, you know, the reason that I am in this industry or I started in this industry was I'm not a foodie. Till this day, I'm not a foodie. You know, I don't go to restaurants thinking about the food first. I go to restaurants thinking about the environment, the people I'm with, the music, I don't know, the way it feels, the way it's gonna make me feel, the experience. And I always loved serving people. I always loved putting people first. And what I wanted to do is to create a place that thankfully I feel we've been able to kind of do, you know, create a living room and make people feel like they're at home away from home. But it was never about the food. For me, it was creating a home first, and then hopefully we can get the food right, you know. But the food was never the focal point. I don't know if it answers your question, but when I was 11 years old, I told my grandmother that I wanted to own a restaurant. And I wish I still had the paper till this day. And so my grandmother said, okay, you want to have a restaurant? These are the 5 things you should do. And the first thing that she put on that list was make people feel good. The 4th thing that she put on that list was the food,
Okay.
right? And so
What's the 5th thing?
actually, that's a good question.
Money? Maybe?
Investors.
Sustain the business?
Yeah, because it was never, you know, even now, I think a good friend of mine asked me, what is the hardest thing that you faced in your restaurant career? And I think I'm facing it now. I'm facing it now because my love is turning into a business. And that's a very tricky transition because you have to be very careful that what you're passionate about, what you love, doesn't become this thing that you loathe and that you don't look forward to when you wake up in the morning. And sometimes I've been there, you know.
Do you think that there's a very fine line to trade as you go into the business? I give you a good example. I started out writing. You know, I love writing. You know, telling a story. But there comes a point of time where the Excel sheets come in, and your investors, you know, making sure that you know you're earning a buck. Right?
So you don't like your job, lah?
So I love my job. I love Excel sheets. I really do. I don't know why people hate it. I love it. I love you can balance things out and things like that. But Javier posed a very good question. When was the moment you guys were chefs and then transited to business owners? And how did that feel like? Jonathan?
I was never a chef.
Okay, good.
I think only Ming can really answer this question.
Ming?
I didn't start off cooking either. I started off organizing barbecues and dinners. I was playing sports for a significant time in the army, and I had a bunch of growing hungry teammates around me all the time, and they would come to my place and destroy the kitchen and just eat everything, and I would just attempt to whip stuff up, and spatulas would get stuck on pans because they're melted, and we would eat instant noodles raw because we were so hungry. We were just hungry at like 4 o'clock. We got training again. We're just hungry. Let's just get something in and then go off. And then I sort of carried on there for a while, and then I got a bit more serious about it after my parents said, "We're gonna ban you from stepping into the kitchen until you get your shit together." And then it was a challenge I accepted. And then throughout my university days, I I was doing the private chef thing. So that taught me one thing, that the people with the nicest kitchens out there, don't use them, right? We have people with fantastically beautiful kitchens, designer wear, Gaggenau this, Miele that, and they wouldn't know how to turn them on. So they had to go and look for the helpers, and they had no idea. One of them tried to turn on an oven without removing that plastic packet of cables and manuals inside. So she turned it on and said, see, the oven works. I was like, good for you. And I went to do something else, and then you start to smell this like horrid smell, and then the paper is burning and the cables are melted, and like, what the hell?
That sounds like a lovely dish.
Very, very tasty. So going through that, I was suddenly given the chance to be the head chef at Lola after having taught at a couple of cooking schools. And it was a once in a lifetime kind of opportunity to start something. I went in blind. I'm the first to admit that my first year there, I screwed up badly. I pissed my team off. People hated me. I had no people skills. I didn't know what it meant to manage and lead by example. And then something happened in the second year when I started to find alternative methods of dealing with my team by, instead of just yelling and shouting and saying, why is it not like this? It's overcooked. Damn it, why? To saying, I'm really disappointed. You should know better. This isn't the kind of standard we want to have. And just turning it that way and telling people that we should hold ourselves to a better standard had a massive effect. And so from there, I transitioned after Lola, into a business owner now. I can tell you, all of that still holds true. The core tenets of that still hold true. It's not about every dish now. It's not about how pristine everything tastes or looks. It is about how I still maintain the people feel as they're cooking. So Javier is very right to say that it's always going to be about the experience and how people feel, because people are core to the business. You can be the best chef with the best kitchen, right? And if no one comes to your restaurant or your bar, then there's no business. It's not a business anymore. It's about making people feel that way. Internally, from my perspective, it's about making the kitchen and your team feel a certain way too. It's why people have staff meal. It's why you develop staff outings. That's why you give them benefits. You want to retain a team. So I'm going to sidetrack here a little bit. This gentleman sitting here in the Captain Crunch jacket is called Jeremy Nui. He runs a food company called Paparazzi. I did a panel talk with him and Bjorn a couple of months ago, and in it he revealed something very interesting about his F&B operation. He has a relatively young team, because he looks older than he actually is. But he has a relatively young team. And what was it, Jeremy? How many young kids under the age of 4 are there in your senior management team?
We have 11 children under 15.
11 children under 15. That is almost unheard of in an F&B operation, to have kids and to have, a balance between work and life. I think that's core to your operations, and it should always be core to any F&B project. So that hasn't changed from chef to owner. That's never changed.
Jonathan, I've read a bit about you, and coming from Ming, you invested a bit in your business, right? You get people together, you open the first day of the restaurant operations, and then you earn a couple of $100.
Not even a couple of hundred.
Not even a couple of $100, right? I remember working in a bar one time, and we earned $11 for the day. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna leave. That's it. And then what happened on the second day? Do you earn a bit more than that, or and then it continues to grow?
Yeah. Over the course of the week, the revenues grew every single day. But, I mean, looking back, it's funny that, we actually pulled in a total takings of like 100 plus on the first day. But the truth is, I think it was a blessing in disguise as well, because right away, it was a very, very clear and very strong reminder that, this is not a game. You might be in it for passion. You might be in it for, love of the food, love of service, want to create an experience, anything. But at the end of it all, it is still fundamentally a business. And, there are numbers to hit, not for the sake of profitability, but for, sheer survival. Because the truth is, to operate a business, let alone an F&B business in Singapore, it can be a very cutthroat and unforgiving corporate environment, like capital environment. So the truth is there is really no runway for mistakes. There's no runway for second chances. Like if you're not getting it right on the first go, or if you don't make rectifications very quickly, the consumers are very quick to just dismiss you, and that really is the kiss of death. So for us, we knew on the first day, okay, things look very bleak. We still have to find some way to, maintain some shred of faith in the business that we've created. But I think it immediately grounded us and humbled us.
Jonathan, the only thing I can cook is rice, and I'm nervous already. Cooking rice, I have no idea how you guys handle it. But that's a very good point. I mean, like you have everything to lose, right? You have everything to lose. And on the first day, to the first month, to the first year, you continue doing your thing. I think the question I want to pose to Javier, because you mentioned that, it's all about making sure people are happy. That's the first point, right? And the fourth is food. And the fifth is we forgot what it was, right?
I mean, yeah, that's changed a bit, right?
Okay. What is it to you? You've been in the business for 5 years, correct me if I'm wrong, more than that?
9 years.
More than that, 9 years. But what kept you going? Why was it you still in the game? Like Jonathan mentioned, it was cutthroat. I'm assuming it's about the rent, it's about people's perception about the food or things like that. What kept you going?
I mean, my own personal drive, my own personal, I guess, steam, and without sounding poetic or anything, is that I truly want to impact people's lives. And so it's one thing to impact people's lives through this, right? Through we're having a good time, we're drinking, we're eating, we're consuming things, we're having an experience. That's one thing. But I think what drives me is everything starts from within. And so I'm more, and please don't take this the wrong way, but more than I'm worried and concerned and consumed with impacting my guests' lives, I'm more consumed with impacting my team members' lives. And so once I could kind of impact my team, my community, and then we go outwardly. And so maybe the fourth ring will be our guest and our customers. But I want people to realize certain dreams and visions and ambitions that they have for themselves. I'm interested in finding out more about the people that work with us and for us. What are their interests? Why are they doing what they're doing, for? Are they in it because they're here for a year because they're on school holiday? Or is this something that they truly want to pursue? How do we align dreams? How do we align ambitions and goals? And so for myself, what keeps me, I could walk away today. I could walk away and say, you know what, I'm happy with what I've done, but I know that I wouldn't feel fulfilled because what I want to do hasn't been, it hasn't been fulfilled. It hasn't been written yet. So, and really what I'd like to do is to impact people, to know that they are worth more, to know that they, we have a lot of young people, especially in this country. I've been here almost a decade, and we struggle with a self-esteem problem in this country. We struggle with certain things that it's not like if I lived in New York or if I lived in San Francisco. I've always said jokingly, I can go to New York City, go to a Subway, get the team from a Subway, put them in a fine dining restaurant here, and they'd be the best team in Singapore, right? Because we don't have that pride. We don't have certain things that drive us. And so I think that what I'd like to do is I'd like people to have these epiphanies, these kind of self-realizations that they can do more, they could be more. And at the same time, I mean, if I want to think of my egotistical side, yeah, I have dreams and ambitions. So how do we align them, right? So in short, what continues to drive me is not so much how many restaurants we have or how many bars we have, but how many people can we impact? Yeah.
I think it becomes like that for whatever industry you work in. It's about working with good people, motivating them, empowering them in your own way, whether being fashion, media, food and beverage, money, finance, whatever. Finance is different. My finance is just money. But you know, it's a very interesting take because I have a friend who runs a couple of bars in Anxiang, right? And every day he tells me his problems.
Henry, huh?
Henry, right? So I always go to Chemba and Anxiang, right? And I ask Henry, why do you do what you do? It's like, you know, every day I face 10 problems. And if I can solve one, that's fine. If I can solve 10, that's great, right? But then I ask, why do you have to do it every day? You can just back off, you know, you guys can earn a quick buck and that's it, right? And his answer is people. I just want to make sure that people are happy. But, you know, Ming mentioned that, Jonathan mentioned that. What about people? Let me pose this question to Ming, because I was at your panel a few months ago, and you always mention people. You know, these guys want to get stuff raised, they want to go on holiday, they got their personal problems. How do you handle that? How do you handle people?
Let's talk about that for a little bit. The points that Javier raised, I think, without beating around the bush, we can all collectively agree that, at least in Singapore, in an Asian context, from a local perspective, the service industry and F&B in general is still seen as a not so desirable occupation. Just gonna put it out there. And this is still very salient around. People still feel that way. I still get that look. Oh, I'm in F&B. Oh. Or, oh, you're a waiter. Oh, I see. And then you look at places where being a career maitre d' or a career sommelier is seen as a source of pride. It's not just an occupation. This is my life's work, right? There is a very different way of looking at it, especially from a local context. We fight this every day. Javier is right about saying that we have a bit of an inferiority complex. How many of us, right, in the F&B industry, and I'm sure a lot of you out there, seven my ass, I'm sure there are a lot of you out there working in the F&B industry, how many of you will go overseas to New York and say, I worked in Singapore, I crushed it in Southeast Asia, like, check me out, right? Like, who the fuck are you? Right, but like Javier said, then people from New York will come over and say, you know, I came from New York, I crushed it in the greatest melting pot in the United States, you know, if I can make it there, they always say that, right? If I can make it in New York, I can make it anywhere else in the world. Yeah. And I don't think that's very, you know, that's not untrue of it in Singapore too. Have you ever been to a place like, you know, Anxiang or Club Street? The competition there is ridiculous. It's off the hook. Everyone else is selling the same thing. The food guys are selling the same small plates, French bistro, bars. It's the same stuff over and over again. Some of them do well.
Trash talking going on right here, right?
No. Whoa.
This is recorded anyway.
Truffle fries, yes. Correct. But some do very well and some don't. And then there's a question, right? Why do those places that do well do well? Why are some people left dead in the water within 6 months? And you see them boarding up and closing. And there are a lot of them everywhere, right? Oh, this new place opened up. And then 6 months later, you drive by and it's gone. And then some places are evergreen. 10 years they've been around. And I think the key is that they've discovered a way of retaining talent, keeping people engaged. Because if you don't have people that are happy, you don't have anyone to serve. And you don't have people who are working happy, you don't have anyone who's going to serve stuff to the people that walk into your shop. And these are the two biggest tenets of the F&B industry. It's basic. You can't run away from those things. Now, to Javier's point, it's difficult to find staff that are proud to be in the F&B industry. That's changing. Don't get me wrong. That's massively changing. Last 5 or 10 years, we can collectively all agree that food has become, you know, a much more shine occupation, right? Yes, your professions, architecture, law, engineering, Now, when you say I'm in the F&B industry or I'm training to become a chef, the CIA opened its only international campus in Singapore for good reason. Culinary Institute of America.
Oh, I thought, okay.
Yes.
Sorry, wrong vibe.
So they have like
What are they eating?
3 campuses in the States. The only one outside of the States, the only one internationally is in Singapore. It's attached to the Temasek Polytechnic campus. It speaks volumes about what's happening here. We still have a long way to go, I think, to the point where I can say, or a member of my team, one of my staff, a young guy, can look at his parents and his parents' friends and say, I'm in the F&B industry. And no one will be like,
Not bad,
so
not bad.
when you're done with that, you're going to get a real job? It's going to be a while, I think, still. But we're getting there.
Jonathan, I want to ask you this. I mean, you went from $100 to $1 million, right? What do you think? No, easy, right? Yeah, it was like, how do you get to $1 million, right? Right? But through that journey, it has been a few years, right? What was the key thing you took away? Was it the people? Was it balancing the Excel sheets? What was the main thing for you?
Hair color.
I would say, honestly, the single biggest revelation that I had was where my greatest source of satisfaction came from. I thought that, in the beginning, it's like, if the business can reach this particular milestone, I'll be very proud. If I can build something that achieves a certain record, I'll be very proud, or win a certain award. But as we kept going, and as we grew, naturally we hired an increasing number of staff, and we've always had a very cohesive company culture, and we would have these gatherings every quarter where every employee will be invited, be they full-time or part-time, and we even invite former employees to just come and just take part in the celebrations, and because we don't forget that they were at some point instrumental to our growth. So just because they've left us, sometimes for further study, sometimes for army, sometimes just to go to another restaurant or whatever, we still offer them an invitation to come back and just see how we've grown, and then we would more or less give thanks to how they were helpful to us in our growth stages. But and it was actually through these sessions and looking at how the company has grown exponentially that it kind of shocked me to realize that I had inadvertently created something that impacted the lives of so many people, all my employees, and indirectly the people that depend on them, because a lot of them are the primary breadwinners for their families. So, like their families count on them to do this job. And then just knowing that this, whatever I've created, it started from a simple desire to make burritos to having a company of I think around 80 plus people, just knowing that, everyone has kind of invested their faith in whatever I've created, and everyone is along for this ride. And also just seeing old faces constantly make appearances at our gatherings. It shows that people, whether they are still with us legally as an employee or not, they believe in the journey that we are taking. Yeah, so I think that would be my greatest source of satisfaction.
Round of applause, please. My question is, okay, people talk about industry. Oh, we want to change the industry. We want to change the food and beverage industry. People should appreciate the food and beverage industry in Singapore more. But your responsibility is of the people. But do you think the people extend the industry in their own way? People leave, people come, new guys come in and all that. They represent the industry as it is. And your job is to take care of them before you take care of the industry. Javier, what do you think?
Yeah, that's a difficult, that's a difficult intersection to deal with, because it's kind of what Ming is saying. I mean, the industry is changing. There is a pride now. I used to have a guy that used to work for me who studied engineering, and he said, I can't let my parents know that I work here. right? He was afraid that his parents would find out that he worked at one of our restaurants. And so I said, okay, no problem. I mean, this was years ago. But just as service is not a one-way street, also working together, building something together is not a one-way street. You know, I always feel a bit of, I feel aggravated when I always hear people say service is horrible in Singapore. It is horrible. You know, it's not as good as it can be. But at the same time, you know, imagine this young, energetic, vibrant individual who is really there because they love what they do. Of course, maybe they're in the 30% bracket. But imagine this individual who really feels pride, who loves, who's passionate, and who comes to work with that energy and that rhythm every day. And they go up to your table and they say, hey, how are you? Can I get you anything? And you, what's good here? You know? And you switch them off, right? Or the way that they're treated, I mean, there's only so much we can take as human beings, right? There's only so much that we want to serve after a while. Our spirit to serve starts to diminish as we're serving people who diminish our spirit, right? And so, but that's one side of it, sorry. And then the other side would be just that team member, that person working in the company also needs to know that you have their best interests at heart. But they have to also believe. They also have to give you the best that they can. You know, I mean, for me in my position at this moment in time, it's trying to build something and trying to have people trust and believe in what I'm saying, providing, you know, giving them an imagery of. But at the same time, that same effort has to come from the other party. It has to come through time, through sacrifice, through pride, through believing. You know, when we believe in people, we fight through. And so it's a two-way street. At this moment in time, we have between here and Bali almost 100 employees. And I know in my heart that what I'm trying to do is provide a better life, provide a better pay scale, provide a work-life balance, provide, we can fill in the blank. So what they need to provide the company with is time, is patience, is sacrifice, it's holding on. The thing that happens in the market we're in is that we want things very quickly. And if we don't get things very quickly, we think it's either failure or we think that somebody's blowing smoke up our ass. And with this industry, it takes time. I always find funny that, especially in Singapore, we love Japanese culture. Oh, this is the best sushi. Oh, this is the best this. Oh, this is the best that. But what we fail to kind of realize at that moment in time is that Japanese culture is built on decades and centuries of dedication to the craft. Dedication
Just
to
one
the
thing,
craft.
just doing one thing
Exactly. And so we need to take those same principles and put them where we are at this moment in time. We're in a first world country with second world or third world results sometimes. You know, and we need to kind of say, how do we really, kind of align things? And so I lost my train of thought because I've been drinking too
No,
much
it's
whiskey.
fine, it's fine, it's good, it's good, it's good.
This is why you went into food and not like an office job, right?
It just, the fact that we're so impatient sometimes.
Yeah,
And it's like Ming said, I mean, you go to places in bigger cities around the world, and there are maitre d's that have been maitre d's for 20 years, right? They've just been serving for 20 years. And they don't look at it as a job they look at it as a craft. this is who I am. Some of the best restaurants in New York, some of the maitre d's are in their 60s, right? 50s. And we go there and we Instagram and we're like, wow, this is great, service and this and that. But we're unable to kind of, if we're in such a country that loves to replicate things, why can't we replicate pride? Why can't we replicate great kind of, instill kind of just a great work ethic? Why can't we replicate these type of things? Why do we just have to
Do
replicate?
you guys feel that way? Do you guys feel that way?
Sorry.
Please.
Singaporeans,
It's a general thing.
general thing. Singaporeans as a whole tend to be a very cynical bunch. We have a very morbid sense of humor, where I realize Singaporeans are very good at trolling, especially trolling ourselves. We look at ourselves, we look at how fucked up we are, and then we laugh about it. We crack jokes about it. So, but, with specific regard to like the service culture, beyond changing the industry, we also have to look at it, like Javier says, it's a two-way street. We have to look at it in the context of the ecosystem or the culture in which the industry sits. And the F&B industry here sits within the context of the Singaporean mindset, the Singaporean culture. And, my friends were recently in Taiwan. And what happened was they were dining and they accidentally pushed one of the small plates onto the floor. So it shattered. And then the waitress rushed over and knelt down and then to pick at the plates, whatever. And the first thing the waitress said to my friend was, "Are you hurt? Are you bleeding anywhere?" And my friends were so taken aback.
Oh, okay.
And right away they were messaging and telling, "Oh my God, if this happened in Singapore."
Instagram that shit and all that, right?
They would look at us and give us blackface, and then they had a good laugh about it. But
Why you so at it?
yeah, but so it almost seems as if we take a sickening, sadistic pride or even pleasure in laughing at the fact that the service in this country is so deplorable. But the problem is actually that, when we come to expect bad service, we will get bad service. It is a self-fulfilling prophecy because, for example, if you were tasked to do something, but you know that no matter how well you do it, the person judging you is just going to say, yeah, it's sure going to suck. You will not be motivated to provide good service anyway. So, therein lies the rub. Our guests, our restaurant patrons expect bad service, and in turn, it doesn't motivate our service staff to go above and beyond, or even just to provide decent service, because they're just going to say I have shit service anyway, so I'll just give them what they want.
That's like the default mode of thinking.
Exactly.
Whenever Singaporeans get into this topic and start discussing this, inevitably someone will mention tipping. Right, and that's a massive can of worms because in Singapore we don't tip, right? It's not gratuity. It's not something that we do on purpose or as a matter of fact. So I just want to have a quick show of hands here. How many of you would rather tip for every meal with the expectation that your service would be better? See, that's a significant portion of you guys out there. And I think that a lot of F&B owners are very divided on this. They're sitting on the fence because some places in the States are actually moving away from tipping
Right.
as the way to get good service. And, well, what do you guys think? John, Javier? What do you define service? What do you define as service?
Yours is I go to the counter, I pick up my stuff, and then I go.
Yeah, lah, you
Right?
get out as fast as you can.
Yeah. Because I got other customers come in. Okay. So what defines?
Well, there's no need for me to charge not GST. GST is no need for me to charge service charge because there is no table side service. I don't go there. I don't top up water. I don't know how you feeling today. What would you like to eat from our menu? Let me help you make a choice. So we don't do that, and I don't think it's right of us to charge service charge. I do know of several restaurants in Singapore. You guys all know Beyond, right? Everyone knows Beyond Artichoke. Yes? No, you guys don't know? Who knows Beyond and Artichoke? Yes, okay, so Beyond and Artichoke. I'm sure a number of you know this also. He sends his staff on twice yearly trips food trips, and he actually makes them, this is work, he sends them to places like Vietnam and Melbourne, and before you think this is a free and easy trip, 6 to 7 meals a day. This is hard work, all right? He's cramming food down their throats, all right? And it's a co-pay thing. They pay like 1/3, and then he and the company pays 2/3 of the entire trip, the flight and everything. And he's able to do this because his decision is that service charge should go back to the staff. I will only recommend this if your restaurants do well, because if not, this has great potential to turn your business into non-business because it doesn't make sense on paper. But Bjorn is able to do that because his restaurants do well, and it's one of the key reasons he's been able to build and retain a team that has been with him for so many years and continues to stay with him and believe his vision. So if you can do it, power to you. It's great. For those of us that can't or won't charge service charge, we don't charge service charge.
I mean, I think tipping is great. People base their whole careers and lives on tips, right? I mean, when you go to the U.S., people make $6 an hour because the rest of their salary is really subsidized by tips. But it's kind of like, the young lady mentioned, Nat, mentioned earlier. For some reason, as progressive as we are, we're still trying to catch up with the rest of the world when it comes to these practices. And so I think it's just a matter of time. I mean, I moved here 9 years ago, and now the city and the way this country is moving and the culinary scene is completely different than it was 4 years ago. And so let's see what it looks like 4 years from now. But I think it will evolve, yeah.
My next question is very simple. Surface level stuff. What's needed in the food and beverage industry in order for it to grow?
Before you start to martyr people and think that, oh, these guys are heroes, they've gone into F&B, wow, so brave, big balls. It's not that case. No one's asking us no one's saying do that. But we mentioned this just now. There needs to be a bit more pride. There's pride in being a lawyer. There's pride in being an architect. There's pride in being successful in a business as a businessman, as your job, right? But if you tell people my job is F&B, there's a bit of a question mark, unless you are the businessman. Why? Because people still don't see that this can be a sustainable thing that you can use to build a future for yourself and have kids and, down the line, what constitutes the idea of a viable occupation that eventually becomes respectable?
Right.
True, a lot of jobs are linked to respectability because of the amount of money you can make or the amount of influence you can wield. I think there's a lot of growth for food in that aspect. So one of the things I want to see is I want to see food become a larger part of people's lives, not just stuff that you need to put into your mouth every couple of hours so that you don't drop down and starve. But I do want to see people start to think a bit more about where their food comes from, provenance. Should you still expect to pay the same price for chicken rice today as you paid 10 years ago? Do you go to the hawker center and say, wow, this used to taste better, but you're still paying the same $3, and then costs have gone up every year by 3%, just general inflation. And you wonder, why is the food not so good? Because they have got to use cheaper and cheaper ingredients all the time. I want people to change that perception. They always say hawker center culture is gonna die off. No one wants to take that over. If at that base level, at that price point, we don't change our look and our opinion on food, I think in the next 4 to 10 years, we won't make that much progress. So I'm gonna watch the hawker center thing very carefully to base my opinion on what happens to the F&B industry.
Thanks, Bing. Jonathan?
Something that's crucial to the growth of the industry for the next, say, 5 to 10 years would be for legislation to actually, be created with what is actually happening on the ground in mind, you see. Because, a lot of people complain about the manpower crunch. That is just one of the issues with it. But a lot of times it feels as a business owner, as a restaurateur, you cannot help but get the suspicion that, all the people in the ivory towers, like they are creating legislation without really considering the repercussions or the effects. I mean, I get it. You know, at the end of the day, this is all politics, and there are political reasons in play. That, for example, putting a tightening foreign labor regulations is basically to appear more favorable in the eyes of the electorate. But you know, those have ripple effects on a multitude of industries, not just F&B, but even the construction industries which typically not only are sustained by, you know, big influx of foreign labor, foreign talent, but they thrive on these talents. Because the ugly truth of the matter is that if a local doesn't want to do the job, but someone from outside not only wants to do it, but can do it better,
right?
we should take it, you see? Because, I mean, I am from the tough love kind of mentality where, look, if the locals don't do it, then I don't see the point in continuing to protect them and protect these jobs in the hopes that they would, one day wake up and say, you know, I would like that now. Because if you don't want it and someone else wants it harder, I'm going to give it to that person. So, and I feel that, okay, I get it, that was a political maneuver at that point in time, but hopefully, you know, before the next election rolls around, they would relax it and, you know, maybe like relax.
Which is
and tighten
4 years? How many years? I don't know. I haven't kept track.
Yeah. So that's my take, that legislation, as they are being enacted, needs to bear in mind the on-the-ground consequences that they have.
Too many things to say.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just time. I mean, really, I mean, we can try to think about 8 different things at this moment, but at the end of the day, we just need time and patience. We need people that are willing, from, you know, government levels all the way down to server levels. We need guests that are patient, guests that have dialogues with people, and we just need time, you know, but at the same time, we need maturity. So, yeah.
Thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much for our sponsors. Akatong, Bomb and Mercia. Enjoy your night, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you very much.